Broadcasting on Star Worldwide Networks. It's Two Small Biz Guys. And now, here are your hosts, Zen Benefiel and Ray Silverstein.
And here we are again for real this time.
Well, people don't know that because they didn't hear the warm-up.
Yeah, and the warm-up was great. You know, we sang a few tunes.
We have a little
just
problem
to warm up.
we have a little problem with our engineer, but that's okay.
You know, guys, I started over so you don't throw me under the bus, and you throw me under the bus.
Wait till the segue.
He was going to be forgiven until that.
Yeah,
so now all we need is a bus, and
right.
we are all set.
Speaking of buses and blunders,
yes.
we're going to talk today about a book by Zachary Shore called Blunder, Why Smart People Make Bad Decisions.
Right.
Do you ever make bad decisions, Ray?
Never, because we don't admit it. I mean, we might as well just be like a politician. We don't admit mistakes.
Absolutely not.
So we're going to
But wait a minute. That's the first thing about being in integrity, right? When you make a mistake, you admit it?
Well, if you're smart, you are, and you get better. People are better workers, followers, team players if they are. But before we go into that, I want to talk about the aspect. No, this book is basically about industrial psychology.
It is.
And a lot of people really aren't into this industrial psychology. And we talked about it on a variety of topics.
We have. Well, people don't like to think.
Well,
right?
They think. But the other aspect is...
Do they?
A lot of people who get involved in these personality assessments.
Right.
And that's really an industrial psychology aspect.
Getting to know you, getting to know all about you.
Oh, my God. You keep that up and you can be in the top 10.
Hey, maybe.
And we also talk about the aspect of EQ, emotional intelligence, and that's also comes from the psychology area. So there's a lot of interesting aspects in business, which are, and just in life in general, which are tied into psychology and beliefs. So,
yep. So the book, basically, it's a book about judgment calls.
Yeah.
And according to you, it's the story of how smart people get caught in cognition. Ooh, that's an interesting word. Cognition traps and wind up defeating themselves. So what's cognition? Let's start there. Okay. A lot of people don't know what that word actually means.
Cognition really has to do with your thinking process as to how you approach matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert Heinlein called it a term, which is really cool that some people might recognize. He called it grok.
He called it what?
Grok. G-R-O-K.
Grok. G-R-O. I thought that was
a drink. G-we-are-okay. No. G-R-O-K?
I thought that was a drink, but okay.
No, grok. It means like to become fully aware of something. Okay. That you really get it.
Well, I don't think...
And that was out of Stranger in a Strange Land. So we're such strangers here in this land.
That's true, but cognition really isn't necessarily being fully aware. It's really a thinking process. It's how people think. But the aspect is He talks about a lot of people make mistakes just because of what he called cognition traps. These little traps that people get caught into. And
there's all kinds of different traps that we'll get into as we discuss things further.
That's right. Because we don't want to let everything out of the bag right now, because then people will just turn us off.
Out of the bag? No, we're just a couple old hacks.
That's right. We want people to stay
hack in a bag?
On, but
hack in a bag. That's like hacky sack.
Right. So he talks about cognition traps are inflexible mindsets. So these people don't really exercise. They don't exercise their mind to really make it flexible.
They don't like to think.
Well, it's thinking of flexibility. Thinking really, people think you can think, but you can think in a set manner. So does that really mean flexible in your mindset? So when you say people don't think, what does that mean?
Well, it means that they're, like you just said, they're caught in traps. Okay, their patterns, their pattern thinking, something, A happens and it gives them B result.
Okay.
And it's an automatic choice that they have.
So
but
all have that.
It's to a point where they really don't think that it's a choice.
So they don't consider alternatives.
No.
They don't consider other choices. So
we might call it stereotyping.
Or we might also call it a reflex action.
Right.
So people are very strong to reflex when a certain thing occurs. So these are cognition traps, and he says that these traps basically cause you to do a blunder. Now, it's very interesting.
And he calls it faulty thinking.
Okay.
Or in terms that I like to use, is stinking thinking.
You like to use that what term?
Stinking thinking.
Oh my gosh, it's almost alliteration. Stinking thinking.
Stinking thinking.
So it means you're supposed to hold your nose when you say that.
And
Here.
well, I'm attempting to be poetic.
Stinking thinking. How's that?
That was really good.
You like that?
Ooh.
Okay.
Don't do that again.
So the aspect is, so what's the difference between a blunder and a mistake? Aren't they the same?
Not necessarily. A blunder is when you absolutely have no idea because of your pattern thinking that something, and you make a bad choice, right? And mistakes are something that happen because you've made a choice, you've had the best of intent as far as results are concerned, and for some unknown reason, something doesn't happen the way you think it might.
Okay, well, the author states,
Okay.
it says, there's a difference
Well,
between...
teach me for reading notes,
Yeah,
huh?
well, of course, that's how you think I got so smart. There's a difference between a mistake and a blunder. A mistake is simply an error arising from incorrect data. A blunder, in contrast, is a solution to a problem that makes matters worse than before you began. So, it's kind of interesting because he's talking about a blunder as a circumstance that things really get worse rather than better.
Mm-hmm.
And if you make a mistake and things kind of stay the same or get a little bit better, is that a mistake?
No. Well,
So-
it's there's this theory that, and we'll get into those because everything's a theory, that mistakes are only stepping stones to success,
Oh, okay.
right? And
That's
every
what-
time you make a mistake, you learn something. Hopefully,
I had a general manager that told me that problems are only an opportunity.
Are there lieutenant managers?
General managers, yes. So
No, you have a general manager. Is there a rank and file to that?
We have a captain manager, but
Okay.
we don't have lieutenant managers. We have a captain of the team. We don't have any lieutenants of the team. So, but we have a general manager.
That would be a supervisor.
supervisor.
Right.
Is that with the T?
Yeah.
Okay. You're a better.
That's a blunder.
You're a better speller than I am.
Better spender? I
So
don't know about
basically, a blunder is where you make things really worse. And I think that's kind of an interesting aspect because a lot of people
Kind of
think,
like we do.
well, some people, that's true.
Right.
Because people are tuning in and say, well, what a great show, and we're making this into a blunder.
Yeah, right. Punny blunder at that. A punny blunder.
Oh, you're almost talking about a blender now.
Yeah.
Come on. So the aspect is, how do you stay away from
Margaritaville.
So how do you stay away from making these mistakes or making these blunders, as he calls it?
Well,
And-
he says that most blunders are a multiple of cognition traps.
right, or they can be single ones. But basically, he says that these traps are in our personalities, they're in our thinking process, and basically they're out there because people don't really have an open mindset. They always, they're as you stated earlier, they're not flexible in their thinking.
When he talks about 7 traps, the Chinese have the 7 faces of ego. I wonder if that has anything to do with the cognition traps.
No, see, he has 7 traps because there were 7 dwarfs, and the 7 dwarfs were short. So therefore, he's saying people who don't have little thoughts are making these cognition traps. How do you like that for an analogy? Our engineers look at me like I'm
that
a
sounds
little bit
prejudicial to me.
nuts. Prejudicial. Well,
You have are you prejudiced towards short people?
is that no?
Should I leave the room?
No, you can stay here. I mean, just stand on the chair. It's quite all right.
All right. So the first one, speaking of exposure, the first one's exposure anxiety, the fear of being seen as weak.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting because a lot of people, when they get involved in a negotiation, they think if they give way to something that the opponent, or maybe not the opponent, but the person on the other side of the table,
The protagonist and the antagonist.
right, that's a good term, are going to take advantage of them. So they have an anxiety about this, and you hear about this a lot in newspapers when they report on foreign relations and foreign affairs, that people think that if you give something up which is small, that you're making a huge error, that you're being weak.
So what you're saying that he's saying is that when you're not firm with the decision and a choice, then you can appear as weak.
Yeah, but the question is, do you have to be firm on
I'd rather be daily.
Do you have to be firm on every circumstance? Or do you have to think about what is the goal that you want to accomplish and how do you move towards that goal? And sometimes to move towards it, you have to give up something.
Right. But you don't, and I think the point that he makes is that in that giving up of something, it's an acquiescing to something that's greater than they are, as opposed to feeling like you've got the command and control aspect where you have to use excessive force to get things done and beat people over the head.
Okay. He also states they think that they are know-it-alls, and they pontificate on everything and fear nothing. Now, the aspect is...
Wait a minute. If you said pontificate?
Pontificate. You like that? Here, you have my blessing.
Oh.
But the aspect is, if you pontificate and you have no fear, you have a fear because you're
fearless
afraid.
Pontificator.
Okay, let's go back to fear.
Okay.
Because if you have no fear and therefore you want to control the entire environment, you really have a lot of fear.
Well, I was going to say, isn't that just the opposite? You want to command and control because you are full of fear. You don't want to let on that you have those fears, and so you appear stronger by using excessive force.
Okay, so the aspect is, in dealing with individuals or dealing in a transaction or a sales environment, do you really have to win every battle in order to, the aspect is, the goal is to win the battle. Pardon me, the goal is to win the war.
I was going to say.
And not necessarily every battle.
So how do you give up a battle?
Well, how do you...
Eloquently.
Well, the aspect is you have to really be open-minded and think about what is the circumstance you want to accomplish. And the key to almost all of these traps we're going to be talking about is open-mindedness. And the question is, how do people become more open-minded? How do they exercise that thinking process? As you call it, they have to start thinking.
Yeah, how do you exercise that brain muscle?
What you do is you take your ears and you pull them.
And you pull them,
and you
yeah.
kind of go back and forth, and there's more space.
I thought you
created.
put that foot-long Q-tip through the
And
center
then
of
you
your
also
head.
take your nose and you pull on your nose, and that expands your head.
Okay.
Does that really give you more brain power?
I don't know. Give me the chin strap, and I'll tell you.
It gives you Dumbo power that
Yeah.
you can really take off. Okay, that's pulling on your ears.
That was rather eerie.
That was eerie. It was very eerie. Okay.
So whatever the particular manifestation, the aim, as you say, it's to keep the world from knowing about the pain and struggle inside. Now, this is something that most of us have, I guess, a fear of being vulnerable, of allowing someone else to know what's really going on inside of us. And is that really a good thing? If we're hiding ourselves and then we're truly not being authentic in the present moment. And the present moment's really all we have.
Well, okay, but
Not that I'm getting all esoteric.
Well, forget about the present moment. The aspect is.
But where are we?
The question you're raising is it really dangerous to let people know how you feel? And I think that's really a misnomer, because if people don't know how you feel, they don't know necessarily how to react, and they don't know how to communicate the circumstance so the two of you, or three or four, whatever it is, are really on the same playing field.
Well, don't we make our choices based on the emotions that we feel, even though there's an intellectual process? When it comes down to it, if we're given a choice between two different things, we're going to go with the choice that feels better.
Okay, but he doesn't discuss...
In most cases.
Okay, but he doesn't...
Unless it's a really hard choice.
Okay, but he doesn't discuss emotion.
Uncomfortable.
He's really talking about this reactive type of circumstance. So, but is emotion reactive? Yeah, I guess it is.
Sure, especially if it's unbridled. If you're not...
Wait, unbridled?
Unbridled.
No, we're talking about marriage now?
No, we're talking about horses.
Oh, okay. Nay.
Winnie.
Oh, Winnie. How does she get...
Mr. Ed's over in the corner.
Oh, Mr. Ed. Okay.
Yeah, well, actually, he's across the board.
Okay. So,
I'm
the aspect here, we have... Our engineer is saying reel it back in.
Okay. So, we got a little off on that one. In the process, if you do not have an internal strength, you're going to be reactive, and your emotions are going to take you from one bad choice to another.
Right. So the aspect is, so he's talking about when you have this exposure anxiety, with the fear of being seen as being weak.
Mm-hmm.
Is that really a fear, or should the aspect is you have to tell yourself that's not a fear to get over it? And how you
get over it, man.
Yeah, get over it. And how
get over it, dude.
But the aspect is how you can use activities and how you can show, being open to accomplish the goal that you want to accomplish.
So that would involve some possible conversations that you might want to have either with your staff, your employees, your partners, anyone that'll listen.
Oh, so when you talk to yourself, do you listen?
Sometimes. Other times there's that, other voice that just wants to argue.
Oh.
And speaking of arguing, we're arguably running out of time here with our first segment. And we're going to take a short break because it demonstrates that we're not afraid to shut up. We'll be right.
Two Small Biz Guys with Zen and Ray. We'll be back after this.
The digital world is vast. Is it working for you? Would you like some qualified help? Zen Benefiel is a wonder with social media who leads focused and organized workshops on multiple platforms like Facebook, Google+, and LinkedIn. He leads by example, not theory, and teaches you how to live large and lively on the web. From blogs to SEO, his web presence speaks for itself. Take advantage of his expertise. Visit BeTheDream.com and click on Web Wizardry. Hire him while you can.
As a business owner, have you ever felt alone at the top? You don't have to be. Ray Silverstein has worked with many business owners for over 20 years facilitating peer advisory boards. He is the proverbial mentor and tormentor. A Pro President's Peer Advisory Board is a confidential monthly meeting of non-competitive owners that give support, feedback, and knowledge. They know the adage, all of us are smarter than one of us. He has walked in your shoes, having owned and sold 2 companies with sales in excess of $60 million and approximately 1,300 employees. In Young President's organization, he participated in peer advisory boards and felt it was a key to his success. His passion is to help small business owners succeed. He knows peer boards work when you are open, don't feel like you know it all, are willing to put issues on the table, and willing to take criticism. Be his guest at a Pro Advisory Board meeting to see if it works for you. There's no commitment to join, and you'll have a great experience. To sample a free Pro Business Owner Peer Board, email ray@proprez.com. That's ray@proprez.com. There's no commitment or charge. You're listening to Two Small Biz Guys. Now, back to your hosts, Zen Benefiel and Ray Silverstein.
So we were talking before we shut up for the break about
Cognition traps.
Cognition traps
and making blunders.
And exposure anxiety. And I'd like to finish up just one thing about it. When a person is willing to expose themselves, it really does demonstrate that the person who erred, if they make a blunder, is honest, responsible, and wise.
And also open.
Right.
All those good things.
All the good things.
So the aspect of keeping things into yourself and being afraid to let the emotions out or let your thoughts out is really not beneficial.
Yeah, if you're going to build relationships, you got to be present, open, honest, authentic.
Yeah, and if you're not present, you can't be there.
Right.
All them present say I.
I left the room.
Okay.
And who's on fire?
Okay.
Cause fusion is the next one.
That's an interesting word, cause fusion.
Confusing the causes of complex
Yeah.
events.
Right.
So he says causation, I'm going to interrupt you. He says causation, confusion, cause fusion for short, is a misunderstanding about the causes of complex events.
Yeah, you'd read that reasonably well. Not excellent, but okay.
It's highlighted. I can barely see it.
You should use a lighter highlighter.
Yeah,
See, you just had a blunder.
I did. So
Well,
often this cognition trap leads to over... Oh, you had more?
No, I was going to say if you use a lighter color, that would see that since you're able to read it, it wasn't a blunder because it wasn't worse.
It
was a
but
mistake.
it caused me to read slower. That way I paid more attention.
Yeah. Okay, I think it's very interesting because in a lot of circumstances, people are out there and they quickly come up with what they think the problem is. And they really don't drill down to what is the root.
So you're saying they oversimplify it?
They oversimplify it, right? They really don't think about all the ramifications, all the complexities. And they say this is, in other words, they're treating the symptom rather than the real issue, what is the real disease. So if I have a running cold, they say, oh, no, runny nose, here, have a handkerchief. And maybe I'm coming down with pneumonia.
How do you have a runny nose? It's still on your face.
Well, I run very fast. It becomes a question if you can catch it or not.
Okay. So
you don't think about that, but the aspect you got to be very speedy.
Catch a cold? No, thanks. I'm going to let it run away.
That's right. You're absolutely correct. When you see, you don't want to catch a cold,
Right.
because that means you got a runny nose.
Yeah.
Okay, but back to this.
So what we're trying to do is deepen our search for causes without falling prey to confusion. So, but at the same time, now the confusion might come from overthinking as well.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an interesting term because
So there's a balance there.
He calls it confusion.
Cause fusion.
But the aspect is, if you overthink it, as you point out, sometimes you get too complex. You try to make it too complex to really solve.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other side is you really don't think about what are the root problems.
Right.
And it becomes very simplistic.
Or maybe you look at, speaking of simplistic, you look at one aspect of a situation and believe it to be the cause when there's a holistic system involved. So you may have, a piece of, let's say you've got an assembly line or a process,
Okay.
and you may have one part of that process is causing a problem that then trickles down or cascades into multiple problems in other aspects of that
That's
process
true.
as well.
So when you said holistic, was that holistic that start with an H or a W?
It starts with an H.
Oh, see, I think it should really start with a W, with a WHOLE, holistic. So
Right.
you consider the whole problem.
Well, but that's also, the whole problem is the problem with spelling in the English language and how futile it is to
Futile.
Futile.
Oh my gosh. Here we
To
have
resist.
Here we have all these new words. You got cognition, and you got
cause fusion. See, you can't even say it.
That's true. Unless I put my glasses on, I get tongue tied. I can't see.
It's
what
not
I'm saying.
highlighted on your page, right?
Right.
So cause fusion then is it's relative, or how we get through that, again, like you mentioned earlier, is to have an open mind. That's the antidote.
Right, but the aspect is that's also the antidote to exposure anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have an open mind, you don't consider what people are going to say back to you, and so open mind is really is a solution to a lot of these issues. So we go back to the aspect.
So if you have an open mind, can you be skeptical?
Sure, if you have an open mind, that means you're skeptical. Because if you're skeptical, it means that you have thoughts about something.
So you're not gullible. You're able to ask better questions about the causation of the problem.
Okay, but the aspect is when you take these terms, are you vulnerable? You're vulnerable because some people, when you raise all
Did I
these
say?
issues,
I meant to say gullible.
gullible. Well, okay. If you take this term gullible, then it goes back to the first cause, which is the exposure anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm afraid to ask questions because I think people might think I'm gullible, I have a situation of exposure anxiety that I'm afraid to ask the questions for
Then
fear,
you have to become vulnerable.
For fear. Yeah, right. So you have to have that, get over that fear that people think you're gullible or you really don't know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you raise an interesting aspect there about. In order to drill down, you have to ask questions. You really have to find out what are the circumstances, and that means you have to be willing to get over the exposure anxiety.
Right. And be willing to realize that there are some things you might not know. And that's the reason you develop the better questions in order to drill down into it and find out
Right.
more information.
See, I tell people I was only wrong once in my life, and that's when I thought I was wrong.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, jeez.
I thought that was me. Well, no, wait a minute. That was the other me. That's right. It's
The
you.
other me. Okay. To me. Okay, so...
Dos huevos.
So people have this situation, and this happens quite often, where people have something comes up, and you really gravitate, or you say, "Oh, here's the solution,"
Mm-hmm.
and it's because it's really a minor solution to what the major problem will be, or what it is, and it happens in a lot of different circumstances.
So what about correlations then? Are those additions or they helpful or can they cause faulty conclusions? If you're trying to correlate different things and,
Well,
and
what do you think? Since you're asking me that question, what do you think?
Oh,
You want to be open-minded.
Now you're telling me that I have to think. Well, I think, therefore I am, and knowing that, there are
Thank you, Mr. Descartes.
Yeah, So at least I'm coordinate.
Okay, you didn't answer the question. So the aspect is if you have correlation.
Correlations, not coordinates. Okay, so correlations sometimes are realistic because you see similar patterns. And if you can correlate patterns, then you might be able to see a different type of solution than what you thought might be there. However, there are some correlations. If you're trying to mix apples and oranges and make some correlations, then those things might just turn into a bunch of fruit.
That's true.
And you don't have any good result, and they're faulty conclusions.
There are some things mathematically have a correlation, but in reaction don't have a correlation.
Mm-hmm.
I forget one of the examples given years ago was there were a number of rats that went on a ship in India compared to something else, and there was no correlation, but there was numerically there was some
more
kind of
rats than people.
Who knows? I'm sorry I brought that up. So. And the engineer
are you being such a rat?
The engineer is saying, "You're darn
such a
right."
rat.
See, that was the aspect. I said, "I'm sorry I brought that up." That's an aspect I was able to overcome exposure anxiety, and I showed my weaknesses and vulnerability by omitting a mistake.
So we need to rein ourselves in to keep our minds wide open.
So the aspect is that you were talking about correlation, which is kind of interesting because he talks about correlation in here. And a lot of people use correlation to say, this has a in other words, in manufacturing, something breaks or something doesn't work, and they say, something was just like this.
Right.
And therefore, that's a cause.
Well, statistics generally are correlative.
Yeah.
And you look for that, similar data points.
Well, it could give you a starting point. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the answer.
True.
So when you talk about making decisions, it's really a starting point of the decision process. It may not be the ending point. And the blunder, what he talks about, is really the ending point that you make a decision which puts you in a worse position.
So speaking of worse position, that would leave us a little flat.
Yeah.
So
the world is flat.
The world is flat.
Okay.
So seeing the world in one dimension, that's the flat view, which is also one of the cognitive traps. So a flat view is any rigid perspective that constricts our imagination to just one dimension. So being a multidimensional being, that's hard for me to fathom.
Well, I think, a flat view is that you make a decision, that's it.
I think in binary code? Is it zeros and ones?
Yeah, that's right. So
I do.
It's not even binary, it's single code, because binary is up to 2. So this is 1.
But if you're thinking in just one dimension, then you have, two ends of the spectrum. We see people as either good or evil, and they're black or white instead of gray.
Right,
when the world is really gray, we understand events as either positive or negative. And since most complex problems typically contain shades of gray, the flat view trap limits our understanding of what we see, and therefore leads us to simplistic solutions. And you say it so well.
I'm overwhelmed with that. That is so brilliant.
Wasn't it, though?
But that was my comment.
I'm repeating myself. No, actually,
I know. Repeat and repeat. But aspect, when you said that so well, so my comment to that was a very flat view statement. So basically, when you say everything is so well or so good, but flat view is very dangerous in respect a lot of people they're not open-minded.
Well, there's no empathy or imagination in it.
Well, and there's no empathy, imagination. There's no willingness to consider other alternatives, and they basically say, no, this is it.
So that takes considering other alternatives takes imagination, right? And it takes a certain amount of empathy for the situation or the people, places, definitely the people involved.
Okay, but why do people have a flat view? They're also very egocentric.
Because it's easier to have a flat view than to expand yourself and have an open mind.
Well, I think it goes deeper than that. I think it goes back to people are egocentric, and they also have this aspect of where they are. I'm going to use this technical term, exposure. They have exposure anxiety because they're afraid that they might be wrong.
So what you're saying is that we need to transform ego to ego.
That's right. No, I go to ego.
Ego to ego.
So in other words, you need team thinking is what you have to do.
Right. So and if imagination resides in the mind, empathy is imagination of the heart. Empathy leads us to feel what others might be feeling. It empowers us to step inside another person's emotional body and experience his gut or her gut reactions.
Wow. I mean, you're going into all this emotion and reaction, but the aspect is...
Isn't that part of EQ?
Yeah, but the aspect is if people have such a
Or
hard...
EI?
People have such a hard viewpoint, I know. If they have such a one singular viewpoint, it's very dangerous. And a lot of people follow that singular viewpoint because they think, going back to the cause fusion, they think that singular viewpoint might be the solution to a lot of things.
But a real solution, though, is more circular thinking in a conversation where you have multiple points of view, or even spherical, where you have all kinds of multidimensional aspects to it, and you're willing to consider that because you have an open mind and you ask better questions that expose that. Speaking of being exposed,
we're going to move on to our next session.
And we'll be right back with you. Thanks for listening to Two Small Biz Guys.
Two Small Biz Guys with Zen and Ray. We'll be back after this.
Hi, I'm Zen Benefiel with Be the Dream Transformational Life Coaching and Professional Services at BeTheDream.com. Our mission? To provide leading-edge transformational personal and business development services. Our services include life coaching, enterprise coaching, partnering facilitations, and possibilities coagulating. We've been in business since 1988. In times of massive change, you need someone who can help you adjust and transform. I can meet that challenge with you, offering a stellar skill set from serving individuals and companies for over 20 years. I invite you to peruse BeTheDream.com and put me to the test. Fill out the coaching assessment survey and give me a call. The first call is free, and you can find out if I'm what you are looking for in a coach, consultant, or service provider. Call 480-633-7179. Let your dreams mold future realities. BeTheDream.com.
Business owners want to call their own shots, make appropriate income, and control their destiny. Our passion is to help you achieve your goals. A Pro Peer Advisory Board is just the thing. It's a confidential monthly meeting of non-competitive owners facilitated by a pro who has walked in your shoes. He's your mentor and tormentor, moving you ahead. When you have issues or opportunities keeping you awake, where do you get help? Pro Boards give support and non-biased feedback from your peers. To sample a free Pro President's Board meeting, email ray@propres.com. There's no commitment or charge. Email ray@propres.com. You're listening to Two Small Biz Guys. Now, back to your hosts, Zen Benefiel and Ray Silverstein.
So we're going to speak.
Give the plug.
Arf. Okay, so I talk on command.
Here, jump.
Oh,
Okay.
higher. Speaking of higher, you have some higher information available on our website, twosmallbizguys.com. If you go refer to our article on this show today, that you'll find a form there to download the crib notes from the book, which will give you a lot more insights than what we've been talking about, although we are very insightful today.
Oh, of course. But so if you go to our website...
We're inciting a riot is what we are doing.
If you go to our website and get this information, it shows that you don't have a flat view, that you're open to many other considerations.
Absolutely. And of course, we have a lot more articles there and white papers available and business worksheets and things like that that'll help you to build your business more effectively.
So where do you go?
twosmallbizguys.com.
How do you, what is that?
That's a numeral 2.
Oh, numeral 2.
Numeral 2.
Okay.
Yeah, numeral.
You got to keep
But
straightening
it's not a
me out
number.
on that.
It's numeral.
Numeral 2 small biz, B-I-Z.
.com.
Okay.
Guys.
Okay, guys. So the next thing we were going to talk about is cure-allism, which is...
Is that like Madame Curie?
Yeah, that's fine. Madame Curie is fine. She
Okay. We're going to glow on that one, aren't we?
Yes, we are going to glow on that one. That's very good. So it's cure-allism.
Believe that one size fits all.
Yeah.
Is that like the Clairol's?
Only if you
Clairvoyance,
have
clairsentience, clairaudience, all those kind of guys?
It's only if you have hair for Clairol.
Right.
So.
Oh. Okay, well, mine's a little frizzy.
Okay. Yeah.
So cure-allism is a dogmatic belief that a successful theory can be applied indiscriminately.
Right. That's kind of like, it's interesting as you go through this, is 7 different cognition traps. Each one kind of feeds into the other one. And curalism is very close if you have.
So they're a holistic system in unto themselves.
Well, but you use the word holistic, but people who are involved in this, I don't think are necessarily holistic. A lot of times they're very
segmented.
No, okay, segment is fine, but I would say they're very monolithic in the respect that they take one consideration and move forward with that one.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really open. And a holistic environment, I think, is more of an open environment.
A lot of times, business leaders or business owners, they'll have a hot book or a hot theory.
A hot what?
A hot book or a hot theory that they're really gung-ho about, and so they try to apply that everywhere in the business, and it may or may not work everywhere.
Okay, so that's your curalism.
Right.
So it also goes back to the aspect of having...
That's what I'm saying.
But it also goes back to the aspect that you talked about before, about where something worked before and therefore it's going to work again, or the odds are that something's going to work and therefore it'll work again, or this is the simple solution, and therefore that's what really the problem is, because it's not really... We don't think about the complexity.
Well, theories are like surveys, right?
Yeah, somewhat.
And some of them, work, some of them don't. But theories are essential in our daily lives.
Okay, so the aspect when one person has one thought or one format or one solution fits all, they're really not thinking about alternatives or options. And really in the thinking process, it's a training, I think. There's a training requirement to think about, okay, what are other options we should consider?
Training?
Yeah, training.
Really?
No, we're not talking about choo-choo trains now.
I want to be a caboose.
You want to be a caboose?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like to follow everybody.
What does that mean? So what does that mean? You want to follow everyone?
I want to follow everyone. That way I can tell where they're going, so I can choose for myself where to go.
I like the way you're moving your hands, so I can follow everyone. I can see that.
Yeah.
now.
Well, when you look around, when you look at everything that's in front of you, then you can make better choices as to what to do personally.
Oh, okay.
In your own leadership.
I have a sweatshirt that says you don't want to be the second dog because you know what you're looking at all the way.
My sister used to say when we were playing as children, we'd run out to a swing or something. She'd always say second.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was always first.
No. What she really meant was when she said second. So you didn't think about the options. So you thought you wanted.
I was just thinking about the swing.
No. She said second means she wants to go twice. So there was a different alternative to that word. It wasn't just I want to be second or I want to be first. It was that I want to go twice.
So she's like Hertz.
So you
when
had
you're second, you try
so
harder.
you had the aspect of.
Or is that Avis?
So you were taking a cure-allism. You were thinking second always had one particular meaning.
Right, and I wasn't able to see in further specificity, on an individual cultural or historical or historical level, as the case may be.
Right. So the aspect is that cure-allism is again all these different isms can be dangerous-ism.
Danger, Will Robinson.
Right. And how about infomania?
How about infomania?
Yeah, how about
the obsessive
infomania?
relationship to information.
Yeah.
Wow. Info junkie. No, they call them infomaniacs. He calls them.
Well, he has 2 different ones for this.
He does. And I really like his terminology, the infomaniac and the infovoider.
Infovoider, right.
Infovoider. That doesn't mean that you avoid it. It's just that you void all the information. You don't believe in any of it, right?
You
believe in all of it, or you
no.
believe in none of it?
Or you also avoid it.
Ooh, that's very flatlining.
But you also avoid it because you don't want to have open exposure. You don't want to be proven wrong.
Oh no!
It goes back to the exposure anxiety because you don't want to be proven wrong. If you avoid the information, you can't be proven wrong.
Is that like accidentally coming out of your bedroom naked to a house full of people?
Are you speaking from experience now? I don't know. I don't know where you came up with that one, but
sometimes people think with their agendas and even their very jobs
I would
could
think
be
that,
at stake if they become exposed.
No, wait 1 second. I think your example was a cure-all to cure-all for modesty.
It certainly was. It was very embarrassing, though. Let me tell you.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to touch that any farther.
Okay.
We're going to move
Please
on.
don't. I feel exposed enough already. Don't touch me.
That's right. Exposed already. Okay, that's for people who think small.
So we have stop it. We have infomizers. All right.
Okay.
So stop infomizing me.
Right. So he talks about one type of person is who likes to hoard information. So infomizers. So they want to capture all the information. They want to hoard it all. They don't want to let it out to others. And there are those people who are info advisors.
It's mine.
Advisors.
You can't have it.
That's right. So why do you think they are? Why do you think they are that way? That there's information, they want to keep it all. They don't want to. They don't want to share. You know, it's my ball. We can't play.
Well, it reminds me. Before I talk about why people think that way, there was a specific example of that with WorldCom a few years back, where there were two offices that weren't talking to each other, or branches, and because one had a piece of software that could have alleviated the problems throughout the entire organization, but the director at that location didn't want to share.
Okay.
And because of that, the information that was necessary to share throughout the organization could not be done, and it eventually caused their downfall because of that.
Okay, so that was a blunder caused by
It was a huge blunder.
caused by an infomizer.
Right.
So, but the aspect, what drives a person not to want to share the information? I mean, one reason I can think of is going back to the exposure anxiety. Is if I share it, people might think I'm wrong,
Right.
So therefore it's a fear
Well, I think
for
it's
me.
more egocentric than that. I think if they're sharing something, then they no longer have a position or purpose, and that if they give something up, then they no longer have it, and
Okay.
so there's a lack of control.
Well,
there.
okay, I think your last term is the key, the question of control.
Right.
Because some people feel they have to control the situation, and the control is really the issue. They're control freaks.
Sure.
And
Well, they're D's or Type A personalities, and those are the types of people that generally run businesses, right? They start off with this huge bag of tricks that they don't want to share because they're afraid somebody will steal it, the competitor will get it, or something will happen that doesn't suit the growth of the business.
right. And there's also people who are infomizers who don't want to share their experience and knowledge to subordinates because they're afraid they might take their position.
Right.
Yeah.
Where the current managed philosophy is that you replicate who you are in the business so that you can move on.
Well,
Right. You find somebody that's willing to be trained, and you train them so that you can take care of other things.
I'll give you. I have a fellow in one of my groups who became VP of quality control for Nabisco,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked him, I said, how do you get to this position? And he said, I only hired people better than me, so they could promote me. Because if you think about it, if you don't have people who are better than you in your position or come up to your position,
Right.
therefore you can't move up because they don't have any confidence that someone can do your job, so you're therefore stuck in that job. So it's this aspect of cognitive fears and situations and thinking process.
Sure.
So I thought that was a very interesting response. And also there's also the other aspect is that you have a responsibility to share information, to give it out when you are a supervisor, because otherwise you can't. If one of your responsibilities in management is to develop people, and unless you share information, these people can't develop.
Yeah. Well, then you have stunted growth. Then you got the short people again.
Yeah, we're back.
You're back to the dwarfs.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we got 7 cognition
Right.
situations. See,
But when you do that,
everything goes in circles.
And circles and cycles and repetitive patterns, and until you change, and you emerge in a different way, the patterns can't be broken.
So the solution to all this is to have 8 solutions instead of 7. Because
Right,
that way we break the 7.
So you're no longer dwarfed. You
No
actually-
longer dwarfed in thoughts, right?
Right. You've got the expanded mind, the open vision, and the transparency that it takes to share that information with the rest of your organization, which is another aspect of current technology management styles.
Yeah, but see, I think the interesting part was never really thought about people who are info-misers as to how they really, bring the organization to a standstill, and really how the organization can grow because of it.
Right.
So
it creates a bottleneck, and we're going to alleviate one of those bottlenecks right now by taking a break and giving you a break. Thanks for listening to Two Small Biz Guys. We'll be right back.
Two Small Biz Guys with Zen and Ray. We'll be back after this. Business owners want to call their own shots, make appropriate income, and control their destiny. Our passion is to help you achieve your goals. A Pro Peer Advisory Board is just the thing. It's a confidential monthly meeting of non-competitive owners facilitated by a pro who has walked in your shoes. He's your mentor and tormentor, moving you ahead. When you have issues or opportunities keeping you awake, where do you get help? Pro boards give support and non-biased feedback from your peers. To sample a free Pro President's board meeting, email ray@propres.com. There's no commitment or charge. Email ray@propres.com.
Are you a small business owner looking for education and information and don't have time for school? Is there an area of your business you'd like to know more about but aren't sure where to go or who to ask? Practical Biz U is an online repository of small business courses now available to you on the web. There are single class options, bundles for specific areas, and monthly memberships for ongoing learning opportunities. Go to practicalbizu.com and sign up today.
You're listening to Two Small Biz Guys. Now, back to your hosts, Zen Benefiel and Ray Silverstein.
So we're not avoiding or misering anything here, are we?
no, we certainly are not. In fact, we're going to mirror.
We're all
things
warmed up now.
Right, we're all warmed up, and we want people to go to Two Small Biz Guys. That's with the number 2, and get information, and even get the crib notes on this discussion, which will probably straighten you out from our conversation.
Yeah, and if you're involved with social media at all, you can like, follow, share, do all those nifty, neat, kind things.
Okay.
So that and expose us.
That's
See, that's all about exposure.
Yeah, you're talking about that walking out of the bedroom again. My God.
Oh no. It's,
Okay, the next
TMI, huh?
The next cognitive trap is mirror imaging, and the author thinks that this one is probably the most prevalent that's out in the world. And basically,
So everybody thinks like us.
Everybody thinks like us, right? And when you get
God, I wish
involved,
they did.
And you get
It would be so much more fun.
No, it wouldn't be fun because then everybody would think like you. You said that earlier. If we both think alike, they don't need one of us.
That was you that said that. That was the other me.
That was the other
See how
you.
see how we are?
We are okay. So
that was
the
an ego to
aspect
ego
is,
trip.
So when you're involved in like international trade,
But see, my mind is so open that I think all kinds of things. You just never know what I'm going to say.
it's kind of like Swiss cheese. Is that it?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm Swiss.
All right. So if you're dealing,
I'm more like a swizzle.
swizzle. Oh, that means you're on the stick.
Yeah, I stir well,
Okay. So if you,
but I don't get shaken.
okay. Let's go back to when you talked about this people thinking like everyone thinks like we do.
Right.
When you get involved in the
God,
discussion,
that's scary.
I had an employee one time that we had a shipping department, and we made him. He was
that with a swizzle or a shtick?
No, wait a second. This is kind of interesting story.
Okay.
We made him into we made him into a foreman. He went from a worker to a foreman,
Mm-hmm.
and as a foreman he was marginal. As an employee, he's a very good employee when he worked in the department. So we want to move him back to the department. So we moved him back, but we didn't feel good because his compensation was cut back down.
Why did you make him a foreman to begin with?
Because we thought he had the skill set to do it.
Okay.
But he
So
didn't
you
have
blundered.
the temperament. This is a long time ago. So then we wanted to make him into a lead man in that department so he can get part of the compensation back.
Right.
And he didn't want to accept the position. And we had discussions with him. And finally he came out and said, "You want me to take this position because you want to fire me." It was off the wall. We didn't have that thought in any way, shape, or form.
Isn't it amazing how people will go to those places and it's not even anything that you're thinking about?
So our thought process was, okay, we're doing something for you because we thought this would be very good, and that's how we're thinking that he will accept it.
Right.
But he's not thinking
He
in that
was
way.
totally in a different stadium.
Right, he was totally in a different stadium. So when you assume that people always think like you're thinking, you can make a tremendous error.
Right.
Now, he came out and told us what the problem was.
They don't want to stay.
That's right. But if you're thinking,
Dim.
well, when you're thinking about doing trade overseas or dealing with a different somebody has a different nationality, they they come from a different country, no, they have different customs, they think
Right.
differently.
So regardless of the stadium, they don't understand stadium or carpe diem. You know, they don't seize the moment and recognize that they're really given an opportunity. And so why do people, and I find this.
Yeah, but you're using the term they don't understand. The aspect is that you don't understand them. So what you're thinking is that everybody should think like you. And when you got to step back and say, okay, how does this person really think? How do they approach? How do I approach them?
Absolutely. And that's kind of where I was going to in the juxtaposition of they and me, is that in order to understand how they are thinking, you know, we first have to recognize that they're thinking that way.
And what do you do if they're not thinking?
Well, then you hopefully ask them better questions to get them to think a little bit more, or you know, throw a party or something. Give them a swizzle and a stick, or a stiff drink.
That would help. That'll loosen them up.
It might, but why? Back to where I was trying to go with that was, far too often people think negatively about themselves and the situation, and they're obviously in one of those cognitive traps, right, where they're flat view, and they're not thinking about the possible opportunity. They're thinking about, oh, I've done something wrong, or my job's under threat, or something of some kind of self-deprecating nature. Why do you think people do that?
What does that mean? Our engineer, we got 3 minutes? Is that what you're telling us? Okay. Because
boy, that was a diversion.
Boy, that
took you a minute to think. You just wanted time to think.
You
about
realize
that one.
I've been using that symbol for like a year, right?
Well, we're still.
I'm just saying.
No,
I think
so
he was an infovoider.
See,
he has this
he's-
information and he doesn't want to share it.
He's been on fire
No.
the entire show. I've been unbelievably impressed with that, and I raise up the
Say that
three
again?
things. Unbelievably impressed.
There we go.
Well,
What did
it's
I
okay.
say?
You
I
know
don't
why?
know.
It wasn't that though, was it?
No.
I keep an open mind. That's why I ask a question.
Okay.
So the aspect is, trying to think about how other people will approach issues and how they think.
Right.
And let's talk about the last one, which you call static cling, which I think that you'll like. The
totally
refusal to
avoided my
accept the
question.
changing world. And it's very interesting because
Oh, it's the static cling. I'm going to cling to this one. I'm going to get that question out.
No, you don't want to cling to this
No,
one. The
it's just a
aspect is-
refusal to accept a changing world. I'm not going to accept that you are changing
Well,
the subject.
no, I'm not changing the subject.
Oh.
I thought that you would like this particular one.
Oh, now
Because-
it's about me?
No, because we only have three. Now we got 2.5 minutes left.
Yeah, okay.
Is that a lot of people, they grow up with a certain tradition, habit, whatever.
Static cling. It's like I'm in a dryer.
Could be.
Yeah. Come out with your hair all.
Right, all fuzzy. But the aspect with static cling is that you don't want to change your thinking to what is going on in the world, whether it be technology or whether it be the environment or world affairs. So you're still thinking back in a certain time frame or in a certain experience frame.
So kind of like this person who thinks in that old pattern of, okay, you're coming to me, you're wanting to promote me, so you're going to set me up to fire me because you think I'll fail in this position.
That could be one aspect if you take into a sociological type of format. But but it's a person says, I just got my new car and I don't know how to drive the damn thing because it has all this technology.
Oh, I've been in that place.
So,
It's like, what button is this? Ooh.
So the aspect with that is you really want to.
Ooh, I like that button.
Yeah, I know that. So the aspect is that people make decisions or they avoid the decision because the world has changed. They don't really understand it.
And that's where you get into problems when you have multi-generational workers, because you've got four generations that are trying to work together, and they are all in the midst of these 7 cognitive traps.
Yeah, I remember
in one respect or another.
When I was in high school, there was a stage play called, I can't think of the name of it now, but the fellow was driving out. He was driving out. That's true. He was driving out to the summer camp, and he was busy shifting gears. And the guy said, "Don't you know it's a hydromatic automatic shift? You don't have to shift gears." Well, he grew up in this aspect. We have to shift all the time.
Was it Grease Lightning?
No, it wasn't. Oh, you just slipped that one right in.
He did, because we got to flip out right now. And Ray, as usual, it's been a pleasure, and I'm sure that our enjoyed audience did. Right, audience enjoyed it. I'm being a little backward here. Thanks for listening to Two Small Biz Guys. We'll be back again with you next week. Tune in and turn on and go look at the website, twosmallbizguys.com, and find out more information.
That's the number 2.
smallbizguys.com. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to Two Small Biz Guys with Zen Benefiel and Ray Silverstein. You can hear Two Small Biz Guys live every Wednesday at noon, or catch their show on demand anytime 24/7 right here on StarWorldWideNetworks.com.